Something you alluded to earlier was kind of this tension between the houses. And this is something we hear all the time of, the Senate's holding bills or the Assembly's holding bills because, they're mad about something. You were, in leadership and, appropriations chairman, kind of, what was your experience with that? And, as someone, high ranking in the Assembly, is that something you ever got involved with, kind of negotiating with the Senate, or, is it more just, lore?
Yeah, so all the time. I mean, there were many ends of sessions where I was fortunate, I guess, or maybe cursed to be part of leadership during my entire 7 years. I think maybe I take that back. Maybe my first term I was not technically part of leadership, but so I was always, even when I wasn't chair of appropriations, there were times where for whatever reason there was some type of big negotiation, for example, on a water bond or something like that, where the Assembly needed to negotiate with the Senate. And certainly when I was chair of appropriations, there were many end of sessions where we found ourselves going over to the Senate to try to say, hey, you really didn't treat this member fairly, or this bill deserves a hearing, or please let this bill out. And then the Senate would give us their list of grievances. It was a Festivus end of session Festivus session where their grievances would be aired, and we would try our best to try to keep the peace. I can tell you that that also brings up something that I think the public really doesn't understand about the legislative process. I talked a little bit earlier about something else that they don't understand, but what they don't understand, what I think the public doesn't understand a lot, is how much the legislative process is a give and take, and how much both houses need each other, and how much individual lawmakers need other lawmakers. The best example that I would give is every once in a while, I would get called to the carpet, or I would be questioned by a constituent about a marginal bill, not a bill that was, pure evil, and not a bill that was pure good, but a bill that was really, sort of obviously open to many different opinions. And a constituent would say, why did you vote yes on that bill? Let me make my passionate case. And why did you vote yes on that bill? And I would say, well, I saw both points, and yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it probably wasn't that the greatest bill, but you understand that the author is the chair of blah blah blah, and I needed that person to put forth the legislative agenda that I have done for your organization and for my district. And they would never get that. They would never understand that. But the best way that I could, hope to help, any member of the public that's watching this understand is that, imagine you got elected because your key thing in your district is education reform. You are so passionate about making sure that the kids in your area have the same access to higher education, or, just a solid K through 12 education that you feel that they deserve and that they're not getting. And then you just imagine that there is a bill that is authored by the chair of the key education committee that you need to get your key reform through next year or that year. You might give that person a little bit more consideration than otherwise, right? And that's why legislative power and being a chairperson is so important. It really helps you get your agenda done, and it helps your district in the long run. But it's also something to where if that chair of that education committee authored a bad bill, your district might not always understand why you voted yes on it.
Right. I guess another interesting kind of part of end of session is the committee process, and how that kind of evolves towards the end. Kind of what are some of your memories about some of the last minute committee you would hold, either as appropriations chair or one of the other committees you held, in these last minute hearings? And did you ever have any on the floor committee hearings or quick committee hearings where you had to do one real quick to hear a bill?
Oh yeah, great question. So, without getting into the complicated rules, in many cases, the mechanism for making an amendment, especially without rule waivers, through the committee process. And in many cases, you want to at least have the record show that a committee did hear a bill. But that being said, yeah, many times, committees would hold hurried meetings off the floor. I remember gigantic committees that I served on, including appropriations, being called in the rules room, which is, Capitol insiders know is rather tiny. And, we would have, 50 sweating lobbyists in the room with us as we, hastily considered something. That really always contributes to the tension toward the end of session. It contributes to the sense that things are hurried. And, some would argue it doesn't always make for the most deliberate policymaking. that is one of the grand challenges of the legislative process, is